So we are continuing our data analytics class series as we have started with Tableau. So we are continuing with map charts in Tableau at this moment. And as the name suggests, map charts, Tableau offers two types of map charts and we will discuss how to create them. Before you are creating any map related data or map related chart or graph, you must confirm that in your data set there are at least these geographical columns, okay, or in your data set the columns that are there should represent a geographical value. So here, for example, country, city, state and postal code, they all represent a geographical value. Okay, we will simply go to sheet. Now if you will consider city, so city as compared to a state or a country is merely a point. On the other hand, state or country, they are like an area in the chart. You will understand what we are saying just after we show you a demo. So for this, first we will drag state into columns. So when you have to create a map chart, at least one of them should, at least one of your two or three values that you are using to create the graph should be a geographical column, because that is there one geographical dimension. Okay, and you can then select map chart. But when you will select map chart, here you will see 49 unknown. Okay, this is because in Tableau, so we'll click on 49 unknown and click on edit location. Because in Tableau by default a country or region is set. Okay, and here in our case the country or region that is set by default is India, and all these states are actually from United States of America. So all you have to do is you just change it to USA. Okay,
Oh,
once you will do that and click OK, so it will highlight USA and its states, whatever states are there in the data. Okay, suppose while loading the data, this is something that I want to introduce today. Suppose while loading the data, we select state column. So we go to state, we select it, and we kind of apply a filter here. So we'll use state as a filter. Okay, state as a filter, and in state as a filter we will select all the columns, all the values, but we will exclude California. Okay, and let's say we exclude Florida also. So at this moment we have selected 49 or 47 out of 49 states. Okay, when you will do this and go to sheet, you will see California is excluded and Florida is also excluded. Florida, this, right? Let's say we also exclude Nebraska. So what is happening there? This is called in Tableau. There are filters that can be applied at various stages. Okay. So this is filter at the data load stage. Okay. What are these filters used for? These filters are used to, obviously as the name suggests, filter the data that we want to analyze. They can be used for data cleaning also. They can be used to select only that data which we want to analyze. Suppose there is a situation that we don't want to analyze California, Florida and Nebraska for some reason. So we will kind of deselect them, and when you will go to sheet and create a map graph, you will see only those areas will be highlighted which are there in the data. So is this clear? You can add one or more filters, right? Suppose you want to add, we don't want entire west region, so you can select region from here and you can select all and exclude west, click OK. Okay, now in the graph you will see the entire west region is gone, right? Only north, central and other regions are selected. So this is how you can apply any number of filters and you can use these values in the columns to filter the data. Now we will select and remove them so that we will analyze the entire data. Okay, so it's not only to it is not that this will be only applicable to the map, but it will be applicable to any other type of visualization also, any other data set. Okay, now as we can see we have a state. Let's create the graph once again to kind of revise and then continue with it. So we'll create another sheet here and delete this sheet. We must have only at least one sheet. So drag state here and then drag any other measure, because that will be the meaningful analysis, right? So let's say we want to analyze sales here. Okay, so what it will do, you can first, it will create a bar graph for us. Then we can go and select the map chart. When we'll select the map chart, this type of graph will appear. Now in this graph you can see all shades of blue, right? The lightest shade of blue represent that sum of sales in that particular state is this one, like North Dakota. Okay, the darkest shade of blue represents sum of sales is higher, that means California. Okay, and all of the states are between, like New York is at 310. So it is taking one numerical variable, and in order to represent one numerical variable with a color, so it is taking different shades of the color. Dark means more, light means less in this group. Now what we can do is we can go to color, we can edit color. Okay, so this is only one color selected, which is automatic palette. In Tableau there are many other palette available also, which we can choose to kind of distinguish in which region there is less amount of sale, in which region there is more amount of sale, or and so on. So here we have green gold, for example. So what in green gold, what will happen, yellow color will represent less and green color, dark green color will represent more. You can also use three color combination. So what we do most is red green diverging. So red means alarming, right? Red is a color which is mostly used in even in web designing, something like Bootstrap also. It is used as kind of something that is alarming. Like red is less, green is positive, or whatever you consider. So it's up to you how you want to use it. You can also use the stepped color. So, here you can see continuous, like coming from red, then becoming white, and then again becoming green and dark green. You can use a step color also. Like in a step color you will have some kind of range, right? Red, then orange, then gray, then light green, then dark green. Whatever combination you want to choose, you can choose, and then you can prepare the graph. Okay, this way you will see what you have selected and use full color range, apply. Okay, this is our graph. Here only two colors are green. That means these two states have actually contributed mostly in sale. All other states which are red have very less amount of sales. Okay, so this is how you can actually use the map. You can use any other color combination of your choice, and like red, blue diverging, whatever you want to use. Okay, now what we will do, we'll create the same graph once again. By default, it will always select blue. Now, suppose you want to display sales and state name on the graph also. So it is very simple. You have to drag everything to label. Okay. So you will drag things to label and you will drag state to label. Then you will see that. Okay. So this way, not only you will see which state is this, and you will also see its sales amount, sum of sales amount. You can change the sum of sales to anything, like you can change it to average, you can change it to minimum, maximum, you already know that, right? So it's when we say sales, you can change the measure to anything that you like, and these are the available measures: sum, average, median, count distinct, minimum, maximum, percentile, standard deviation of population, variance, and variance of population. What is the difference between this and this? Everything we'll understand in upcoming chapters. Then we will study statistical, functions and statistical measures. Then we will discuss these things more. Because everything actually has a formula. So let me introduce that to you. So in order to understand standard deviation, we take a very basic example. Let's say in our class there are 5 students. Okay. Now there can be 50 students, 500 students, and these are their marks. Is it okay? In the similar way, in this data set, there are 9,994 sales, right? And for every row, like there are total 9,994 rows, and for every row, there is some sales, and there is a sales amount. Do you get this? As in a class, there are, let's say, 50 students. So every student will get some marks. Let's say out of 100, that student got some marks, right? In the similar way, sales, quantity, profit are all measures. In the similar way, it is there. Okay. So when you are calculating a standard deviation, there are some other measures that you have to calculate first. Okay. The first thing that you have to calculate is mean of the marks in this case. In other case, in case of our data, what you will do, you will calculate mean of sales. Okay. So mean of this simple data is 70, right? If 5 students have got these many marks, then the mean is 70, which is easy to calculate. You just add them and divide by total number of values. Is it okay? Then you calculate the variance. Now how variance is calculated? Here you put total number of values, right? 5 is actually total number of values. Then you subtract every value by mean. First value is 70, so you will subtract 70 by 70. Second value is 90, so you will subtract 90 by 70, right? 80, 80 by 70. Yeah. And then you kind of make the square. So 70, 70 is 0. This is 20 square, 10 square. This is minus 10 square, minus 20 square. And when it's a square and a minus sign, so minus sign will automatically become plus sign, right? So this becomes 0 plus 400 plus 100 plus 100 plus 400, that is 1000 by 5. That is 200 is variance. Okay. So variance represent, like, what if variance is more, that represents the data points are very far from each other, right? If variance is less, that represents the data point are very near to each other. I will give you an example just after this. Then standard deviation is just the square root of variance. Okay, like, because variance is sometimes a very big number. Okay. So when we are analyzing a big number, here value points are 70, 90, 80, 60, and if we say variance is 200, it might be confusing. So standard deviation is simply a square root. We take its square root so that we can see, okay, 14.14 is the standard deviation. So the standard deviation of approximately 14.14 tells us that on an average the student marks differ from the mean by about 14.14 marks. Do you get this point? Like
Can
every
you
stu
tell me one?
exactly, every student has got some marks. Okay, and there is a mean also. Okay, so standard deviation is telling every student collectively is 14.14 away from average. Do you get this?
Yes, yes.
So the standard deviation of approximately 14.14 tells us that on an average the student mark differ from the mean by about 14.1. Okay. Now we are taking another example here. We'll say 95, 96, 95.1, 95.2, and 94.8. Here also we are considering 5 marks. Like these students also got these marks. Calculate
Mm-hmm.
variance and standard deviation. So here it will apply the same formula, right? First it will calculate the mean. So you can see the mean is also very much similar to these numbers, right? Variance.
Yes,
See, variance is a very small number, 0.16 only, right? And so is the standard deviation. So
yes,
what the low standard deviation indicates that the marks are very close to each other, or the marks are very close to the mean. When we say so, right? If that means every
yes,
person
yes,
in that particular group got almost the same marks, right? So this is very important.
yes,
So when we calculate per capita income or something like that, in a country where standard deviation of income is very high, there are problems like some people are very rich, some people are very poor. Okay, if the standard deviation is low, that means
mm-hmm.
everyone almost earns equally, so making policies decisions become easy. So these type of measures and these type of calculations actually explain many things about the data. That is what it is called statistics, right? You By calculating these things you get to know about statistics. Later we will also study about
Yes,
what is standard deviation of population and standard deviation of and variance of population. That is something that we'll deal later. So that's what I was explaining. You can change. It's not only about Tableau that we are learning. The course is actually data analytics. Tableau is one example that we are taking. So here you can change it to anything. Okay. So these are the measures. Let's say standard deviation. You can see standard deviation in California is 491. In North Dakota is 257. Right. So states where standard deviation is more, that means the order values are away from the mean, right?
yes,
Standard deviation is low, that means in those states almost all order values are of same value, something like that. So this is one thing I wanted to tell. So let's go back to sum. Okay, now this is one thing. What if we drag state name in color? Okay, if you will drag state name in color,
oh,
it will change the graph back to this symbol map. Okay, so now let's introduce symbol map. So this is one map where we have area. Okay, area means every state has a big area, right? But if you consider, if you compare a city with a state, a city does not have that bigger of area as a state. So for city, this symbol map is a good choice. Okay, so we also have city value here. So when we will track city and sales, or let's say profit, whatever you want to analyze, so you will see that almost the same graph will be prepared. Although in some cities we may have loss, so that's why these graphs are like in Philadelphia, Houston, San Antonio, Chicago. All these cities have loss.
Yes, yes.
So now in this case, you can simply click this graph, and it will show you this data. Okay, and here what? But how will you analyze this? Here, the small dots of the very small dots represent least profit, that is negative profit. Okay, and big big dots here represent the cities wherever you can see a big dot, like Seattle, like New York City, in California, Los Angeles, right? So you can see these are actually big cities, not this. Uh,
Yes.
so if you will take your mouse over to them, you will be able to see. So this is what you can do, right? So here area is not filled. This is a symbol map, and if you will select area, it will display like this. Okay, simple colors. So this is the best way to represent this data. So this is how you can simply create map graphs. Okay. Now there is one more thing related to map that I want to tell, and this is an introduction of something new that you will learn in upcoming chapters also. So in Tableau, when we are analyzing data, or when some fields are given to us, okay, so we can create some fields on our own also. Okay, for example,
Okay.
for example, we drag sales here. Okay, but it is
Okay.
actually giving us sum of sales. Okay, if we drag state here, okay, it will give data like this, which we can change to a tabular data. Okay, that's how you are,
Oh,
and
I was doing in the
yeah, in the Northwind question series. Okay, in Northwind also
yes,
countries are given. Okay, countries are given, states are given, so you can, now you can
yes,
combine all this knowledge that you are getting from these graphs into that, right, in the
mm-hmm.
Northwind data set. Now this is what we have done, table graph and all. Okay, now this sum of sales, there is no such value as 19,511 in the data set. Okay, this is actually a field, or this is actually a value that is coming from a field that is a calculated field. Do you get my point? This is not an actual, here we are not showing sales. Are we showing sales? We are not showing
No,
sales, right? What we are showing here is we are showing sum of sales, which is grouped by Alabama. Okay, so
aggregated,
yeah,
aggregated
exactly,
by the
aggregated value. Okay, so in Tableau, if you will click on this small dot over here, okay, there are actually a lot more ways of doing this, but this is the best and easiest way. If you will click on this small drop down icon, you see options to create a parameter and create calculated field. Okay,
Okay.
So these are two very important elements that we will learn. These are very important features of Tableau. Okay, and this also, you know, this is also a very major part of Tableau. Okay, so in the data we get some fields, but we can also create calculated fields. Okay, and when
Okay.
when you will click on create calculated field, a window like this will pop up. Here the name of field is calculation 1. Okay, and you can see bunch of functions over here, very much similar to what you have already learned in Excel, what you have learned in Python, what you have learned in other programming language like SQL. If you have not learned anything, then also there is no problem. We'll go through them. But
Okay.
if you know programming language like SQL, Python, or Excel, they also have many functions like this. Okay. So here this is the name of field, here we have function. So suppose I want to create a field that always tells average of sales. Okay, do you get my point? I want to calculate a field that
Yes.
always tells average of sales. Okay, so that I don't have to change some average, I don't have to do that. So let's try. So let's call it average sales. Okay, and then what
Okay.
you will do, you will write average. This is a function avg, and when we say function have parentheses. Okay, open bracket, close bracket, parentheses. By open bracket, close bracket, it means we have to put something in between these parentheses, right? What will be the that in this parentheses? That will be the variable sales. Okay, so you will simply drag sales here. Let me show you once again. Let me
Yes.
show this entire process once again. So let's close all of this. We will not create this. Okay, we will not create anything over here. So this is our default data set. You click here. You click on create calculated field. Okay. When you will click on create calculated field, this type of window pops up where here you have the name of field that will appear here. Okay. So name of field is average sales. Okay, and here is your working area. Here you will write your formula. Okay, what happens in Excel is
Okay.
you can write formula there, right? So similarly here you can write formula,
Yes.
and based on what type of formula you have written, it will actually create a calculated field, which which is actually a calculated column and can also be a calculated measure. That is concept of Power BI, but let's not confuse. So let's say this is calculated field only in Tableau. Okay, so you will write average. For average we have this formula. Okay, so you have these formula over here. Their examples are also written. So when I have written average, you can see example. How is the example written? You will write average, then bracket, and inside bracket, within square brackets, you have to write your variable. Okay, so now write square brackets. So square bracket represent a field. Okay, the square brackets represent a field. A field is something that is already there, so you just write sales. Do you get my point? So it will be written like this. Let's break it into different parts. Okay,
Okay.
so first you write function name, open bracket, open square bracket. In square bracket you will write field name, right? And then close bracket. So it becomes like this, simple. Is it clear?
Yes.
Suppose you have to write sum of profit. Okay, so you will write it like, suppose you have a variable called cost price and another variable called sales price. Okay, so you can also write something like this: sales price minus cost price.
Profit का जो formula.
Exactly. And you can name this field as cal profit, like calculated profit, right? So sometimes in data set, profit will not be given directly. You have to calculate that, right? Or suppose you have 1000 products that you are selling. You are analyzing data of a e-commerce company or a trading company like in Northwind. So all the prices that are mentioned there are without any VAT or GST. Okay, those
Okay.
prices are without any value added tax. Let's say the tax is 18%. So in that case, what you will do, the total price will be price plus 18 divided by 100 multiplied by price, right? You
Yes.
can write it in brackets. Am I wrong? Yeah. Like price plus 18% of the price is total price, right? Or let's say
And there should be bracket. There should be parenthesis or something like
yeah, it will be like this. So price is a field, so it will be like
that.
price is a. So if it's a field, it's a square bracket. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a function, is round function is written with these round brackets. Okay. We'll discuss this. So average sales apply. Okay. Now with sales, we can drag average sales also. When we drag another measure, here it says aggregate, right? AGG means aggregate. That this measure
Yes.
already gives you an aggregate. Okay. And then you again go back to show field and click table once again. So now you will have the second variable. Okay. Here you can see. So this is average sales like in Alabama or Arizona. These are the average sales and this is sum of sales. Okay. Let's say we want to count sale also. Count sale is already a calculated field generated by Tableau. Okay. Now after dragging two fields, we don't have to again do the same exercise like drag it here then do it. This will also create third column for you. But now what we can do, here you can see a measure values card is also there. So you just drag your measure here. Do you get my point? And you can watch this video once again to understand what I did here. So now you have count of orders. Okay. Now the alias is count of order, which is a very big name. So simple order count. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can change these table names also. So in that sheet that I gave about 50 questions of Northway, in that sheet sometimes it is written and select it as this, right? Select it as this. So that as is actually changing the alias, right? Your field name can be anything like average sales,
Mm-hmm.
sales, order count. Okay. So this way actually you can create calculated fields. And why I am introducing calculated fields here, because we are discussing map here. That today's class was about maps. There are many
Yeah.
calculated fields that are related to map. Okay. There make line. Okay. Make point. So just
Sure.
just study the formula make point. Okay, in make point you can see latitude, longitude. Okay, so when we were and we'll give more examples of this. Okay, area. Okay, area of a geometry. Okay, what is geometry? Geometry is like a shape, right? It can be a square,
Yes.
it can be a triangle, it can be rectangle. So it can actually calculate area of a shape. But if you watch closely in this graph also, these are all areas, right? Not perfect shapes, but these are all
Yes.
areas,
Yes.
right? So these are kind of geometries. What is a geometry? So that is something that we will, there is no formula for geometry, right? But what is a geometry in Tableau, we will
Yes.
understand later. And there are actually some sample data sets out there which we can use to create the geometrical shapes and then calculate their area. So this is all related to map. We were analyzing this data, right? These are all well qualified names of cities, right? Like standard names of cities globally understood. But what if you have to show, suppose you are analyzing data for a company which has branches in different locations which are not, you know, proper names. Maybe you are getting my point, right? Let's say our branch is
Yes.
in
Yes.
our branch is in Daliganj and Bakshi Ka Talab and this and that, right? So even then you
Yes.
want to represent them on map. Okay, so even though your branch is in Daliganj, it will have a longitude and latitude, right? Every location will have a longitude and latitude. So
Yes.
what we can do is you can use the make point feature of Tableau, the make point function of Tableau, and put latitude comma longitude there, and it will create a point for you. Okay. So here we search something like longitude and latitude of Madison Square. Okay. Let's copy this.
Yeah.
So now you can see the calculation is valid. Okay. If we have any error, like let's say we write something like this, the calculation will go invalid. Okay. Calculation valid means it is just, and we can name it something like Madison Square or MS, whatever you want to call it. Okay. When you will do this, you will see this field will be added here. So one field was added which was average sales and another is MS. Okay. Now I want to take a screenshot and zoom it so that I can explain a little bit more. This is a calculated field, so you will see an equal to sign here, right? This
Yes.
is also a calculated field, so you are seeing a equal to sign here. But here you are also seeing a globe sign. Why are you seeing a globe sign? Because it's a
Area, geographical.
exact. It's a map related something, right? And what map says, like, okay, we have created map. What map says 1 0 0 0, right? So let's drag this 1 0 and you see a point here, right? Maybe
Yes.
it's I don't know where it is showing, but maybe we have written some wrong latitude or longitude, but it is actually showing some graph, right? So we'll
Yes.
maybe we have written in wrong order, but the idea is with the help of this we can actually prepare these points, and we'll discuss this later also. Okay, it should have shown actually somewhere else, but the idea is if you have your own, you know, factories or something that is not listed, so with the help of make point you can collect its latitude and longitude and write it in this order and then display that. Okay. Here Google has suggested 40 point this and this. Okay. But it is actually minus 73.99. Let's try minus 73.99. Because I was also confused. Well, let's just put minus. Apply. Yeah, now it's in New York somewhere.
Yes.
So it's in New York. Okay, and this way actually you can display the data. So we'll discuss more about map related fields, creating lines. Now what will be a line? Suppose there are 2 points, right? Let's say Madison Square Garden here and some point in India, like let's say Arun Jaitley Stadium. Okay, and we want to create a line. So that line will be created on the graph. Okay, to represent a path or something. So there is actually a data set of flights, like flights taking off from different airports and going to different airports. So you can actually see the path of flight, right? I will discuss that later. So those type of graphs we will discuss in upcoming classes.